Okay, so hello, good evening. Oh, well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending where you are. I'm Anna China, and we're going to work together today with types of reading. We're working with the four language skills. Last class, we worked on speaking and listening. And today, we're going to be working with reading and writing. So let's get ready, let's get started. It's a very exciting class. I love teaching the skills of language because they're the basis for the students to develop their language skills. So there are two types of reading: extensive reading and also intensive reading. There are some authors that refer to extensive reading as joy, that you read for joy, like novels and books, magazines, and intensive reading when you have a purpose. So the extensive reading is when you read the full the full book, short story. And the intensive reading is when you're focusing on specific content that you need either for your academic studies or for business. So that's the difference. Now, in terms of reading assessments, there are several types: academic reading tasks. You also have when responding to questions. So you read a text and you have to respond to questions. You can also have, similar to IELTS reading tasks, that means multiple choice, authentic texts that college students will have to read and then write a report or produce a review, integration in lesson plans. So you add speed reading, skimming the text. So when we talk about speed reading, we teach the skills to the students and then we assign tasks where they will have to apply these strategies. Silent reading is very common, principally for intensive reading. However, we read a lot for intensive reading as well in silence. Rarely will we do read aloud. Read aloud, we only do that like in elementary school. But in the ESL classroom, it should be an activity to be incorporated because it will really help reading skills as well as pronunciation. Now, there are different kinds of genres, and we're not going to look in detail in all of them, but in your canvas, it's all there. So, nonfiction and fiction. And then, of course, there are greeting cards, diaries, memos, emails, maps, signs, recipes, bills. So, all of this, they are different genres. Each genre has its own characteristics and normally even structure. Now, efficient reading strategies. We're going to look into this so that you can apply these in your classroom. The intention is for you to understand each type of strategy so that somehow you can convert this into an activity, include it in an activity, or if you're following a textbook, you can extract from the reading passages additional, skills that students can develop. The first step it is to identify the purpose in reading. So why are they reading? What is the intention of reading? Even if it's an atmosphere like an ESL classroom, they need a purpose. So are they reading to answer questions? Are they reading to debate? So why are they reading? Also using some rules and patterns to aid in bottom-up decoding. And this is very important for beginners because they're very, sometimes they're not confident on how to pronounce the words, how to say the words. Even if it's a reading class, they have to be confident in identifying and knowing what they're reading, how to pronounce what they're reading. So working with, patterns and rules for pronunciation, silent E, all of this you can also do, principally, as I said, with beginners. Now, the silent reading techniques, they are for understanding and for extracting relevant information. You can help your learners to increase their efficiency also when you teach them how to use silent reading. The advantage is that you don't need to pronounce the words, it's all about understanding. You can try to understand more than one word visually at a time, and even phrases, so they can identify words and phrases, keywords and key phrases. And unless a word is really crucial to understanding the text, teach them to skip. Teach them even, to ignore it. Sometimes I do an activity, since I teach in Brazil and there is a common language. When I used to teach in Canada, there wasn't a common language in the classroom, but here there is. So if you teach in an atmosphere, in an environment that there is a common language, you can take a text like a poem or something in some kind of passage in the mother tongue and propose to them to read. And of course, you're going to choose a text that has some words that aren't really common, and they will be able to understand the text even without understanding those specific words that are not common to them. So if they do this in their mother tongue, they can certainly do it then in English. So the mother tongue would just be to illustrate. Skimming and scanning. These are two very important strategies that students should learn to develop, and you train your students for this. So skimming is to get that general idea. There are two basic ways to skim a text. You can read the first sentence of a couple of paragraphs so that you get the general idea, or you can skim to identify repeated words. We know that repeated words are important words because if they are repeated each time the word is repeated, it's because a concept is built around it. Scanning, that's when you're looking for specific information, usually for multiple choice questions. So they're looking for specific information. Teach them to identify numbers, capital letters. That is always helpful. Guessing, so they will guess the meaning of a word, the relationship in terms of grammar, the relationship in terms of content, and of course, implied meaning. Guessing involves a lot from their background. Their background can be helpful. And of course, you should use general skills. So for instance, vocabulary analysis. So the students can analyze unrecognizable words and try to analyze the prefixes, suffixes, root words. Also semantic context. So for example, words around the unknown words. So that's another important way. You can have keywords, connectors, and markers, such as firstly, secondly. These words identify how the text is organized. Words that add information, furthermore, in addition. Logical sequence, so that's to introduce, to conclude an idea that was developed when you're going to explain or illustrate. In other words, for example, contrast, words that show contrast. So all of these are very helpful to help the student read and understand the content. For efficient reading strategies, you should go to your Canvas. Now, there's a lot of nice stuff there. I was reading and I was using, trying to see how I could apply that. But here we go. There are 2 reading lessons there, and there are passages of 2 different ESL textbooks, and they're designed to teach reading skills. So the first passage is designed for beginners, and the second one is intended for advanced students. But what do I propose? When you go to these tasks, these exercises and activities, go back to the efficient reading strategies and see which strategies can you apply to develop the task that is proposed. So for example, in lesson 1, it is from basics in reading and it illustrates the use of natural, authentic language. That's always the best option, even with beginners, exposing them to authentic language. So it starts to ingrain in their mind. The input is done in authentic language with English as a basic language communication with structures and vocabulary that is appropriate for the English language. You should also look into the bottom-up skills, but of course, not at the expense of the top-down processing. That means the bottom up is to understand how the text is built, the content, but the top down process, it gives that general understanding. So you can work with some vocabulary, some pronunciation, but don't distract your students' attention from the overall meaning and content of the reading passage. Okay, once again, read, analyze, and see which reading strategies you can add to develop this task with your students. Maybe a skimming, maybe scanning, what tasks, or help them identify markers such as firstly, secondly, markers that add, markers that show contrast. So you can take it in steps. Lesson 2 is from Challenges. It's a book, Process Approach to Academic English, and it illustrates the use of an article from a popular magazine for advanced level classes. It's mostly a top-down activity because we want them to understand the content. And you should really work with this like with B1, B2 students, the Common European Framework. You will definitely have to use scanning because the activities proposed, it is a writing activity. So based on the reading, the student will have to produce a writing activity. So the student has to understand the content and then develop a writing task, which is well instructed. So I highly encourage you to go and check these tasks and try to do them yourselves as well. I was having fun. I was doing the tasks earlier today. There's also a very nice video teaching reading in your ESL classroom. It's worthwhile. You should watch it with pencil and paper in hands to take notes. It's really informative, and it points out important elements in reading that as a teacher you should focus on. Now, the implications of reading strategy. So let's talk a little bit on the teacher's perspective. So as a teacher, reading strategies, they are plans to solve your students' reading problems, which we know that many suffer. So they range from bottom-up vocabulary strategies, which can be tasks such as looking up unknown words in the dictionary. So you can allow them. As I said, you should vary the activities that you propose so that they don't know what to expect, and they will always be developing different skills. You can work with more comprehensive actions, such as what is being read and associating that to the reader's background. So let's suppose the reading is going to be about soccer, and we know that now the World Cup is coming up. So we can first, talk about the countries participating. Where the World Cup is happening? Where is it taking place? And other details that many students, I'm sure, will be, enthusiastic to talk about. Now, research in first language acquisition and second language acquisition has shown us that the strategy that we use for proficient and less proficient readers changes. We should apply different strategies. Let me just see if I can adjust my screen here. There we go. So for more proficient readers, you can use different types of strategies and vary more the strategies because they're more proficient. They can deal with language better, so you can propose a variety of tasks. With beginners, you're going to be a little limited because you have to work within their scope. If you try to propose an activity that is way beyond their scope, they may feel demotivated and not really interested. So always be sure that the tasks that you propose, they can challenge your student a little bit, but they can't be out of their scope, or else they will be demotivated and they won't be interested in participating and in learning. Now, what do the researchers' results, what do they mean? What does this, as a teacher? Well, The goal as a teacher is to teach reading to help the students develop themselves as strategic readers. That means readers that understand what they're reading. So our goal is to teach them skills and strategies that they will develop to become proficient, capable readers. Now, how should this teaching be carried out? So, strategy instruction, or that means teaching English using strategies, has been discussed for many decades already. However, in TESOL, or teaching English as a second language, little has been published that relates to teaching reading strategies in the classroom. So there's a lot of theory, but how to apply that in the classroom. So nowadays, there is a trend of using strategies and techniques from first language acquisition in second language acquisition. So the intention now is to teach reading on a more comprehensive approach, using a more comprehensive approach, focusing more on content. Of course, structure is still important, grammar is important, pronunciation, but the first step now is that your student, when he reads, he has that feeling of, okay, I can understand this. I can manage to read the text and extract from the text the main ideas and understand the final, the conclusion. So, according to some researchers, this dilemma is being kind of solved by applying first language reading strategies in the ESL classroom. Basically, we deal with 4 reading strategies: summarizing, predicting, clarifying, and asking questions. So we encourage our student to read and to summarize, to be competent in summarizing. We also work with predicting using the title, images, or main ideas. We work with clarification, and of course, we encourage them to ask questions in order to develop their reading skills. Several versions of applying first language acquisition reading strategies have been tried in the second language classroom, and they have been found to be helpful. So definitely we are moving to a more comprehensive approach, to a less technical approach to reading, which makes it more enjoyable. So effective instruction in strategic reading entails many classroom activities or processes. At some point, they do overlap, but here we go. So the general strategy discussion. So we can discuss the text, teacher modeling, student reading, analyze the strategies used by the teacher, by students when reading aloud, when thinking aloud. So reading aloud and thinking aloud, these are very productive processes. And explain and discuss individual strategies on a regular basis. Once again, remember, each student is unique. Some strategies may work better for one student than another. That's why you need multiple strategies so that you will cover all of the needs in one classroom. So you should organize your class activities to reflect these processes, definitely. And with time, for instance, if you teach the same group several times, you will learn to recognize and identify your students' skills. So this video, how to teach reading skills, is really helpful. There's some modeling, some samples, some real students that you will see how to apply the reading strategies and skills. Well, of course, that reading, many times we read to produce writing. That is so common, principally in real life. If we take academic students who attend college, they have to read articles, sometimes to produce another article using information from several articles, write a review, write a summary. So writing communicative and academic. These are the two basic types of writing that we will deal with. We're going to look into the process of writing, text structure. This is a separate class. We will deal with text structure, assessments as well, and always consider authentic material in your foreign language classroom. The types of writing: intensive, that's when it's more controlled and guided; display writing, real writing, academic, vocational, personal, and self-writing. Here we go. So, interestingly, there are many different genres of written texts that you use as reading material. But the act of writing in the classroom is less than reading, at least in most course programs. So most of the time writing will be like a homework, an assignment. Rarely will we spend time in the classroom writing, which is a shame. We should sometimes dedicate time to writing. So imitative or writing down, this is a very good type of writing to apply and to work with beginners. So they simply write down words and sentences. Usually we're talking about a dictation. So the steps that involve, and remember with beginners, they really need this time. They need to process. Some of them are visual. Some of them, they are oral. They need to repeat. So that's why you have to include several different skills in one class and different activities. So the teacher reads a short passage once or twice at a normal speed. Then the teacher reads the paragraph in short phrase units. During the pause, students write exactly what they hear. The teacher then reads the whole paragraph. And then, of course, the scoring. I really like to do pair work when it comes to this type of activity, principally for the peer checking, because they can support each other. They will find that their mistakes may be similar. So they will help each other. Peer teaching is very, very productive. Once we learn how to apply it, and they learn because they don't feel exposed to the rest of the classroom many times. So they will usually find and search for a peer that they feel comfortable with. Always allow them, always no, but most of the time allow them to choose their partner. They will feel more comfortable to work with, so they won't worry about exposing themselves and exposing their mistakes, principally adults. Intensive or controlled. This type of writing does not allow much creativity. So the student, once again, we're still dealing with beginners. So we can ask them to change the present tense of the verbs in a paragraph to the past. Sometimes they may need to adjust adverbs of time and so on. So it's still controlled because they're still learning. Once again, we need to cater to their needs, challenging them, but without stretching too much, because we don't want them to feel demotivated. There's also you can use stimulators such as a video, an image. There are so many options. Display writing. Now, this type of activity or writing you can use with all levels. And usually they are for short answer exercises, essay examinations. So an essay, you can propose a smaller, a more extended essay, and even research reports. They involve an element of display. So display, it is to produce. That is the idea of display. It's to produce. So a research report, even a beginner can do a research report in bullet points. So that could be a beginning of introducing them to the genre. Real writing. Now, this really happens in some classes, depending who you teach and where you teach. So if you're teaching, let's suppose, business English, they really need to learn how to write an email or how to write a memo or a report. So then this is very, very, it stimulates your student to be more active usually, because The writing that he's going to do in class, it corresponds to what he needs in real life. So the classroom becomes more authentic because of the purpose. Academic writing. So usually academic writing, it's group problem solving tasks. So they're related to current issues or to other personally relevant topics. They may have to write a component in which information is, they have to really go and do the research and, find the information, to report the information. Once again, peer editing. This is definitely helpful, productive, and the results are fabulous once you get the hang of it. Vocational and technical, this also, it is kind of like a variety of real writing. Many students, in order to advance in their studies, they need to produce material in English, either an article, even if they're studying in a country where English is not maybe the official language, but as a second language, they may need to produce material that is in English in order for them to advance. They may need to participate in interviews. So they have to write a cover letter. They have to write their resume. So this is included in technical and vocational writing. Personal writing, we all have this. And once again, this is an activity or a genre that you can use with all levels. They will write postcards, notes, a shopping list, personal messages. Nowadays, very much not anymore on paper. But we use WhatsApp or other, apps to send messages, personal messages. But in the classroom, you can even encourage them to send a message to a friend on WhatsApp as a personal message, setting a date, a time to meet, I don't know, to go to the movies, something like that. Now, there are specific principles when designing writing tasks. And of course, I'm just going to go, it's an overview now, but in Canvas, this is nicely detailed. So when we talk about tasks, specific principles, oh, sorry, this came out repeated. So let's go to the first one. Consider and incorporate practices of good writers. What is a good writer? A good writer, he's able to express and to follow the instructions. That's the first thing. Many times they have to learn how to read and follow the instructions. You should always include a goal. So what is the goal at the end of this writing task, writing class? Always they should kind of like have an audience in mind. Who are they writing for? Always encourage them to make a plan before writing so that their writing will be informative and well structured. Feedback, that is a must. They love to get feedback, and it's the best way for them to. We learn a lot from mistakes, and students in particular. So be sure to provide feedback. Make as many corrections as needed, as many times, sometimes repeatedly. We will correct the same student, the same mistake, but we will insist. Balance process and product. So how to develop the process, how to involve the student in enjoying the task of writing, developing the skill, and then having a final product. Cultural background, literal background, all of this you can explore. Connect reading and writing. This is always helpful because sometimes when they have to write, they feel that they lack ideas, so the reading can support that. Authentic material, authentic writing. Now, some techniques that you should really work on when you're dealing with an essay in particular. Pre-writing, drafting, and revising stages. So the pre-writing stage, it is to encourage them to generate ideas. And you can do this in several ways. Reading a passage, skimming or scanning a passage, conducting outside research, brainstorming, which you can do this as a group in pairs. Clustering, that means beginning with a keyword, give them a keyword and they will build concepts. They will build around that keyword. And of course, discussing the topic question as a group or in pairs or in small groups. The drafting and revising stages, they are the core of writing. So after they have generated ideas, they have ideas to write about, then you're going to work with the drafting. They're going to start sketching, but jotting down their ideas. Then they will exchange their ideas with their peers. And then the instructor, the teacher, we will be there to follow up and to also, contribute. Read aloud. So this is a very nice strategy. We can make small groups and pass by, stop at the groups and ask them to read their ideas. Of course, we should try to develop interactive activities, tasks, even if it's a writing. It can mix with discussions, opinions, and then writing again. As a teacher, we are also a consultant. And we have some urges. Okay, so here are some guidelines when we're correcting or we're reviewing students' writings. So we should really resist their writing. We want them to develop the skill of writing. So minor grammar mistakes, sometimes it becomes kind of like polluted, and the student may think that he's not developing his writing. So sometimes just in the first draft, don't focus on minor grammar errors. Focus more on the content. So resist the temptation of rewriting the full sentence. Make some pointers. Ask the student, maybe guide the student to invert maybe the sentence structure, or ask him to make a quick note, check the adjective position, and slowly he will start to adjust his writing. Always be sure to start, with that positive feedback and then pointing out the minor mistakes. Students learn a lot from mistakes, but they also need to be encouraged. Always comment on the introductory paragraph and then comment on features that appear to be irrelevant to the topic. So be sure that you point that out. Question clearly inadequate word choices and awkward expressions. So ask them what they wanted to say, what was the intention, so that you can help them transfer to English and not to a translation that doesn't really make sense in English. Always ask for, after a first draft is done and reviewed, they should come back with a second draft. And then in the second draft, you start to work more with grammar, punctuation. So the first draft, it's really for content, ideas, some pointers of sentence structure, and pointing out suggestions on how they can correct their own writing. Okay? They should always use formal conventions of writing. They have to have a clear statement of the thesis topic. They always have to develop one main idea per paragraph. Encourage them to develop supporting ideas. So by describing, by giving evidence, linking cause and effect, or using comparisons and contrasts. Now, the teacher as a guide and facilitator. So this is a little guide to help you evaluate. So make your final evaluation of the student writing. That should consist of an overall approach. 6 general categories. Content. So in content, always be sure that the student is clear in the thesis statement, related ideas, the development of ideas, that they use description, and that they are consistent on their focus, that they don't start to go off topic. Organization, it has to be organized. An introduction, a logical sequence of the paragraphs to unfold and develop the ideas, a conclusion. Now, the discourse, topic sentence, paragraph unity, the transitions, the connectors, the use of pronouns, prepositions, participle, vocabulary, and of course, punctuation and spelling, citation of the references. If they're writing like an academic task, citations have to be there. So in terms of reading and writing, they kind of like go hand in hand. Reading is an input process, writing is an output process, and one can really be helpful to the other. Planning a class or an activity that involves both is one of the best ways to guarantee that your student reviews the content with different formats. So in reading, the input is done. And once again, you can use several different tools, images, videos, even comic strips, so that they are exposed. You can use small texts of the same topic. You can take a topic, select a topic, and find a comic strip, find I don't know, a post in Facebook, and then they can have several, different perspectives of the same, of a topic. And then propose a writing activity. Can be a repost. If you're working with a post from Facebook, let's suppose, you can ask them to reply to the post. So there are several ways that you can develop your tasks. Be creative, read the material in Canvas, and trust me, and you will really be prepared to develop very productive tasks that encourage your student to be active readers and good writers. Thank you so much for joining me. It was delightful to be here. I hope the class was informative. And remember, go to Canvas and be sure to read through material available in detail. There's a lot to learn there. Shazia, you have raised your hand. Do you have a question?
Good evening, Miss Anna. If it is evening
Hello.
time. Hello, hi, Miss Anna. How are you? Is it evening time in Brazil or morning time? Because it's very early in the morning in Pakistan. It's I think 6:47 a.m. in Pakistan, and I have to get ready for my job as soon as possible so that I could meet my uh, early assignment. And I wanted to ask one thing. Could you please share the link of today's lecture because I missed the beginning points of today's lecture. And if you could provide the link of today's lecture or the recording, I can.
Yes, you will
Mhm.
receive an email with the link. Okay?
Okay, ma'am. May I provide my email address on in chat box?
Yes, please. Can you put your email address, and then you will certainly receive an email. Did you receive an email from the previous class of
Yes,
speaking and listening?
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I received only two links, the first class link and the second class link. And except those two links, we all students couldn't get any link of any class.
Okay, so I will talk to Dr. Siavashi.
Mm, we don't
Can you
have.
please provide?
Yes, ma'am. I'm writing my email ID.
Wonderful.
Is it evening time in Brazil? Are you talking from Brazil?
Sorry?
Are you giving lecture from Brazil? Because that.
Yes. Yeah, I'm from Canada, but now I live in Brazil.
In which city of Brazil?
Sorry?
Are you living in which city of Brazil?
Yes, now I live in Brazil.
Mm, that's fine. What time is there?
Now here it's 10 to 11 p.m.
10 to 11 p.m. It means we are one day ahead, 24 hours, almost 24 hours
Yes,
ahead. Okay, ma'am.
that's it.
It means we are
I
superior with
think
We are
I
superior.
think you are like
Let's
8
start with
hours
them.
ahead of me.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, Shazia, be sure that I will send your email and I will
Mm.
ask them to provide and that you will get the link, I'm sure. Okay?
Okay, ma'am. We haven't received lecture 3, 4, 5, 6 video recording links so far. If they
Okay.
provide all the links to all of us, it will be so helpful in our upcoming midterm test.
I'm sure, definitely. I will send that through. Okay?
Okay, ma'am. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. So nice to talk to you.
It was very nice talking to you too, and thank you for joining the class.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Have a good
Bye
night.
bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you.